Take a little water here. Now, my friends, any questions or concerns or comments you have to make, please let me know. You'll have different venues to go ahead and address that at the end of my presentation today. Well, moving right along, there's a great stone in Kauai from Mount Waialeale. It's called the Naha Stone. It's huge. And so what they do with this stone, when a baby was a li'i baby was born, it will be placed on this stone. And if the baby was quiet, then that baby would grow up to be a great ruler and chief or chiefess. Okay. They brought the stone on a double hull canoe, which is amazing because if you see the stone, you're wondering that double hull canoe must have been a really big canoe or it would have sunk. They brought it all the way from Kauai to the Big Island and it ended up in Hilo. Now, those of the Naha line were allowed to try and move the stone. A legend had it that if a person could move the stone, they would be able to move the islands and unite everything. And so Kamehameha was not of the Naha line. Okay. He was from the Ni'opio descent, which is a lower ranking line of authority. And while people believe Kamehameha was not worthy of attempting to move the stone, nor did he have the capabilities to do so, he paid no attention to that. And he went and, as the accounts say, he not only lifted the stone, but he overturned it. Amazing as that sounds. Now, this is a picture of the stone right in front of the public library in Hilo town. The other big stone is the Pina'o stone, but you can see by the pictures how big this stone is. So Kamehameha being able to overturn that with his superhuman strength is incredible, to say the least. But then again, that started a bunch of rumors again. If this guy's born during Halley's Comet, now he's lifting the Naha stone. This is the one. This is the one that's going to unite all the islands. So it's adding credence or credibility to all of those different stories. Okay. Kalani'opu'u's getting old now. Okay, he's starting to get old, and he has many children, but his highest ranking son, or the one of his sacred wife, is Kalola. Her name, she was Kahekili's sister, by the way. So it's interesting, again, yeah, my friends, that you have warring factions with members of your own family, but his name is Kivala'o, and he's designated by Kalani'opu'u when Kalani'opu'u knows he's gonna die soon, that he designates in a temple ceremony that Kivala'o will be a steward of the lands, that he'll be taking over that part of the rule of the island, and the rule of, or the stewardship of the war god, which is another important duty and responsibility, goes to his favorite nephew, Kamehameha. Okay, now, Kalani'opu'u had other sons by other wives, and by another wife, he had twin sons, Keo'okuahu'ula and Keo'ope'iale. Okay, but they were not chosen to be stewards over the war god. Personally, I believe because they were already priests of the god Lono, and so they could not officiate in that other capacity. But during this time, there's a rogue chief in Puna that causes Kalani'opu'u some discord, and so they leave the ceremony in Waipio. They go down to Puna area, Ka'u, where actually Kamehameha was raised, by the way. Kalani'opu'u had his capital in Ka'u for a while. And this rogue chief was finally hunted down and captured and killed. Okay, and because of the designation already talked about, there was another temple ceremony that was needed to be done. And during that ceremony, now again, there's different accounts here, my friends, and so this is just one account of what happened. Kivala'o was required to place the body of the dead chief on the altar as part of that ceremony, but was not able to do so. Some accounts say he started to throw up because he couldn't take the stench. The body was ripe, was ready to burst. It was a couple of days old. And then what happened, Kamehameha pushed him on the side and he took that body and he placed it on the lily. Now this is a huge protocol snafu, and Kalaniʻaupou is very upset, and especially those chiefs loyal to Kivala'o, they want to kill Kamehameha right there on the spot. Kalaniʻaupou stops all of this and he asks Kamehameha, why did he do that? It was not his place to do that. And Kamehameha states that Ku needed to be serviced. He couldn't do it. That's why I had to step in and do it. Now, unbeknownst to anybody, Kamehameha maybe had a hint that this was going to happen. Maybe Kivala'o was more subject to be a poet, not really a warrior maybe. I don't know. We don't know. I wasn't there. You wasn't there. We can only speculate. But Kamehameha slept overnight near the body so he'd get used to the smell. And so it didn't really affect him the morning of that ceremony. So that's how the story goes. But nevertheless, Kalaniʻaupou tells Kamehameha that if I wasn't here this day, you'd be killed. So you, Kekuaopio, and your group of guys, you go back to Kohala and let this thing cool down a little bit. So Kamehameha returns to Kohala. He starts training his men again. And in the meantime, Kalaniʻaupou dies in Ka'u. Kamehameha surrounded himself with his uncles, his close relatives. They called this group of men Ahaula. Now, every great ali'i had Ahaula. Aha is the Hawaiian term for cord or cordage. It's made from the coconut fibers. Ula is the color red, talking about blood ties that tie this group of distinguished men together and ties them directly to their ancestors. Now, Kamehameha's Ahaula was very, very influential in helping him attain his goals of total unification. And they were all very loyal to him. And they ended up dying in his service. And when they died, their sons took over their place in the Ahaula. That's how much Kamehameha loved and trusted these great men. Now, in particular, two of these men, we're all relatives, yeah? But two of these men, Kamehameha and Kamanaba, this is the first painting I did, by the way, when I first started painting about 11 years ago. Their older sister is my 8th generation great grandmother. And so when me and Drina had twins, we decided to name our twins Kamehameha and Kamanaba. And so these two warriors and uncles and counselors of Kamehameha are remembered today on the coat of arms that you find, the royal coat of arms. Okay? So that's a family connection that my children will always have the name of their ancestors as part of their name. Carries on. Okay, fast forward. We're at the Fruno position at Kalaniʻaupou's Fruno. This is held in Kona. It's a place called Haleokeawe. There's two great heiau on the island of Hawaii at the time. One's in Waipio Valley, Haleoliloa, and the other one's in Kona, Haleokeawe, where Keawe Keikahi's bones are kept, and all the other ali'i at that time. And so, what happens after Kalaniʻaupou's death? Kivala'o redistributes some of the best choice lands, and he lets his uncle Keawe Mauhili do that. And they only take care of their favorites. So a lot of the higher ranking chiefs from Kona, Kohala, and even his own sons in Ka'u get left out of the best lands. And so as you see in this painting here, by the way, this is my first oil painting I ever did. I learned to paint oil paints from a good friend and dear friend called Ed Caton. And he's on the Big Island, and he taught me how to paint in oil paints because I didn't know how in the beginning. And this is the painting. But anyway, you can see on their faces, they're not too happy. You can liken it to when your grandma dies or your loved one dies and she had promised you certain things and your cousins get it. You didn't get it. And, so anyway, there's feelings here, and unfortunately, there's still bad feelings from that incident that happened in Ka'u, where Kamehameha does the snafu at that ceremony. And so what happens, as a token of loyalty and friendship, later on that evening, after dinner, they have a ava ceremony, where Kamehameha himself prepares the ava. And he goes ahead and he presents the cup of ava to Kivala'o in telling him, let bygones be bygones. We're sorry. I'm sorry. We had some misunderstandings, but, I'll follow you I'll do my job of taking care of the war god. You do your job, taking care of the lands and stuff. And what Kivala'o does, he takes the cup and he passes it to a lower ranking member, which is a big, again, protocol, no. Yeah. That's almost like an act of war. I guess he's still angry about what happened months before. What happens? Kekuaohopio stands up, kicks the cup out of that guy's hand, and he tells everybody, I guess you guys want war. This is an act of war. And so Kamehameha and his uncles all leave that facility. And in the meantime, Keoua and his brother, they start making hanaino. Well, there's trouble in Ke'e. They kill a few of the villagers and start to cut down coconut trees, which is also a blatant act of war. And Ke'e happens to be Kekuaohopio's hometown. And so there's war right away. And the area that is chosen is a place near Moku Ohai, which is near Ke'e. That's rough lava a'a. And it's really close to the city of refuge, Pu'uhonua. And speculations say again that maybe if the battle wasn't doing too good for Kivala'o, he could run and be safe in the city of refuge. Now, the interesting story of this battle is that you have your two kahunas praying and asking for guidance. And Kamehameha's kahunas is telling him, or his men, that on the fourth day of battle, don't go on the battlefield until the sun is high. Now, Kamehameha and Kekuaohopio are not quite at the battle yet. They're in purification ceremonies because they were very close to the body. So they're not involved in the early battle. But the rest of his uncles are. Okay. Kivala'o's kahunas are telling his men, on the fourth day of battle, stop at noon or when the sun is high. The next day you will be victorious. Well, unfortunately, both sides didn't really take heed. And one of Kamehameha's uncles, Ke'eaumoku, which happened to be the father of Kaahumanu, he's overcome and he's being killed. He's getting a good whipping from a lot of Kivala'o's men. And as you see in this illustration, his half-brother Kamanava and Kame'eaumoku, now again, they were all related. They're trying to save him. Now, unbeknownst to both of them, the men stopped killing him. He said, you know what? Let's call the boss. We want to let him know who we got here. And so Kivala'o is called up and he sees his uncle on the ground and the men are just having their way with Ke'eaumoku. He's badly wounded, bleeding. And he turns to his nephew and he says, my nephew, are you going to call off your men? They're killing me. But Kivala'o turns to his men and tells them, you know what? Don't get blood on his palawa, which is his well-toothed pendant. I want it. And so when Ke'eaumoku hears that, he knows he's in, it's not going to be a good day for him. Unbeknownst to both of them, there's an expert sling, expert on the side of Kamehameha's armies. And he lets a sling go. You can see him in the top portion of that picture. And his aim is true. He hits Kivala'o right in the side of his head, right in the temple, which causes Kivala'o to fall and get knocked out. Now, when his men see him fall, they start a panic. And Ke'eaumoku takes that to his advantage, and he crawls over and he kills Kivala'o. Kills him immediately, as badly wounded as he is. And the battle turns into a rout. The armies are destroyed, really bad. Keoua and his armies go back to Ka'u. Keawe Mauhili is captured, and they felt sorry for him, so they let him go. But the very first battle, Kivala'o is joining his father. Okay. Now, for those of you that have been to the Bishop Museum, you can go ahead and see this cloak. This belonged to Kivala'o, and he was wearing it the day he died on the battlefield. So what happens now? Big Island of Hawaii. It's split into three groups of ruling chiefs, or ali'i nui. Kamehameha controls parts of Kohala, all of Kohala Kona, and parts of Hamakua. Keawe Mauhili, the other uncle, he controls Hamakua, Hilo, and Puna, some of Puna. Kalaniao Pu'u's other twins, his twin sons, Kewa Kuahula and Kewa Pe'iale, control parts of Puna and all of Ka'u. For the next 10 years, there's civil war on the Big Island. Unfortunately, no one chief is victorious over the other. It's a continuous grind, okay? Lack of a better term. Okay. During this time, foreigners are introduced to Kamehameha's group, and I'll explain how this happened. The first guy I'm going to talk about is his name is John Young. Now, both John Young and Isaac Davis come from England, and actually they grew up 120 miles from each other, back where they're from. They didn't know each other, but they were both employed on ships. Okay, Isaac Davis was a first mate on a ship called the Fair American, and John Young was a bosun on the ship brig called Eleanora. Now, the Eleanora was captained by the name of a man named Simon Metcalf. And Simon Metcalf and his son Thomas Metcalf of the Fair American, were both together in the Pacific Northwest doing some trading. And they were going to rendezvous in the islands later on that year. Thomas Metcalf got caught in some trouble and was detained. There was a war going on between Spanish and the English at that time, or Americans, but he was later let go. But Simon Metcalf had already left and told his son, "I'll meet you at Kealakekua on the Big Island of Hawaii." And so Simon Metcalf's already in the islands. He's doing trading on the island of Maui. And there's an incident that happens on his ship where Kame'eaumoku, one of Kamehameha's uncles, who was visiting Maui at the time, is embarrassed on the ship. I guess he touched something he wasn't supposed to touch. So Simon Metcalf got a rope out and started whipping him. And, Kame'eaumoku's no dummy. He can see that Simon Metcalf's men are armed with muskets and different things and sabers. And so he bides his time, but he's embarrassed. And he says, he makes a vow that the next ship that he's happened to see in his neighborhood, he's going to go ahead and get. Later on, the story goes that one of the natives stole a rowboat from Simon Metcalf's ship, and this greatly upset him. And it was rumored that somebody from the village of Olowalu, Maui, was responsible for the theft. So what Simon Metcalf did, he sailed the Eleanor down the coast to Olowalu, and he made like he wanted to trade with the natives that started to come out to his ship. There were over 130, 150 Hawaiians that came out, men, women, children. And what he did, he filled his cannon with grape shot, which is nails, glass, musket balls, different things, and he opened fire on these Hawaiians right off of Olowalu and massacred and killed, like I said, hundreds of them, just because somebody took his rowboat. And so to this day, it's still a sore spot, I guess, so to speak. They're planning on doing a memorial out in Olowalu, maybe for this, that's what I heard recently. But after that, he nonchalantly sails to the Big Island, and he awaits the arrival of his son, Thomas Metcalf, in the Fair American. Thomas Metcalf and his crew of about 5, there's 6 of them on the crew. Like I said, his first mate is a man by the name of Isaac Davis. They just happened to be passing by Kame'eaumoku's hometown in North Kona. And Kame'eaumoku, true to his word, he gets on a couple of canoes with his boys, and they fake trade that they want to trade with this ship, not knowing that the captain is Simon Metcalf's own son, Thomas. And they killed the entire crew. Threw a lot of the guys overboard. Again, they didn't know how to swim. Isaac Davis knew how to swim. He fought bravely, and he was spared that day. You can see this painting I did of him from my good friend Scott. But he's very, very badly wounded, and Kame'eaumoku spares him. And In the meantime, Simon Metcalf is waiting at Kealakekua. John Young is on shore. He's collecting different things, different samples, and Kamehameha hears about the incident that happened with Kamehameha Moko. So Kamehameha puts a kapu on the bay, forbids anybody from going out to the canoes or the ships, and anybody from the ship to land ashore. So Simon Metcalf is getting irritated now. John Young hasn't returned, and he even fires cannon at the village. Finally, after a couple of days in disgust, he ends up sailing away, abandoning John Young in Kealakekua. And later on, these two men become Kamehameha's own sons. He gives them command in his armies. He gives them lands. He gives them his children to marry, and they become very, very honorable and close and loyal to Kamehameha. But there's a story that I'd like to share that it's not well known. That a couple of months after they were under his employ, they were caught trying to leave Kamehameha. They were caught trying to board a ship going back to England. And Kaiana, one of Kamehameha's generals, catches these two. And he brings them in front of Kamehameha and he tells them, "Boss, your two haole sons trying to go back to England and tell King George about the incident that happened with the fair American. But I'm not doing anything right now. I'll go ahead and kill them. I'll just take them, behind the barn and we'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about these two guys anymore." And Kamehameha tells him, no, Kaiana, thanks for your help, but you can go now. So he's adamant, but Kamehameha dismisses him. He says, "Please leave." So he sits these two guys down, John Young, Isaac Davis, and he tells them, "You know what, you guys, in a short time that you guys been with me, I don't know if it's been a couple of months or even a couple of years. We don't know when. I've given you land. I've given you command in my, my armies. I've given you my children to marry. And you're trying to leave me. Why are you trying to leave me? Yeah. What did I do to make you want to leave?" And he told them that, he had genuine aloha or love for them. And he says, "Well, my king, my liege, we fear for our lives because when you get drunk, you beat your wives, you beat your children, and you beat us. And we don't want to die. We fear for our lives." So when Kamehameha heard that, that hit him right between the eyes and right in the heart. Account goes that he started to weep and cry, and he asked for forgiveness, and he told them that he would never allow himself to lose control again by getting drunk. And from that day forward, Kamehameha was true to his word. He never allowed himself to get drunk again, although he might have had a small little thimbleful of rum after dinner. But he never lost control of his emotions because of liquor. And John Young and Isaac Davis never tried to escape again. They both died in Hawaii, never returning to see their loved ones back in England. Moving right along. Also during this time in the civil wars, Kamehameha and his group did not have a good day in the wars with Keawe Mauhili up in northern Hilo, and they were returning to go back to their home base, and Kamehameha sees a group of fishermen. And they're not doing anything. They're just trying to take care of their families. But since Kamehameha is having a bad day, he decides that he's going to kill some of them just to get that anger out of his system. And so he's in the process of chasing some of these fishermen down when his foot gets stuck in a lava crevice and he can't get it out. So the fishermen see that. They turn around and they break a canoe paddle over the head of Kamehameha, which knocks him out. Now, if it wasn't for Kamehameha's men coming to save him, he would have died that day. Okay. The people escape. Kamehameha is taken back aboard, and then he carries on. Years later, when he's finally unified all the island, he goes back to this village I guess it's in Puna. I got the name of the village. A little later you'll see it, but And he calls these two fishermen out because he remembers who they were, and they remember him, and now they fear for their lives. They think they're gonna die, but Kamehameha talks about the incident, and then he proposes the law, Kikanawai Mamalahoi, or the law of the splintered paddle, which means established by Kamehameha, and assures that every man, woman, and child would be able to travel freely and in peace, with the right to lie down and sleep by the roadside without fear of harm for them. And so that's how the law of the splintered paddle was made known.